Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with the Calvin Weeder Species. Um, this is part of my 10-day journey with the Garden State Film Festival, interviewing writers, producers, directors, actors, musicians. This has been one amazing journey for me because this is such a passion for me to meet people in this industry because I have the utmost love and respect uh, for this industry. It's changed my life. The movie Casablanca, as many of you know, changed my life irrevocably and wonderfully. So I've been sitting here talking to ZAREH Artinian and Carl Sheffelman, and we've been just catching up and spending a whole bunch of time catching up and learning. I'm learning about their journeys, fascinating, interesting journeys, and we're here to talk about specifically, America Jonze, little poster. I do my due diligence here. And both your backgrounds are so fascinating and your journeys and how you got here and the work you do. And then we'll talk about America Jonze in particular, because as you wrote to me, this is really important and timely. And in my impression of the world, it really is hugely so, and it's coming at this perfect point in time. So I'm really excited about this interview, truly, gentlemen. And let's jump into it. And if you want to do a little quick background, and then we'll talk about America Jonze. Take it away.
Okay. All right. I'll start. I'm ZAREH Artinian. I am a playwright and screenwriter, and I am the creator of America Jonze. It's I'm sorry. So as far as my background goes,
Yeah,
some
sure, a little bit,
yeah.
sure.
Okay. So yeah, so I used to be a teacher. I was a teacher, and one of the things that I felt, I'm sorry, I know we can't edit this.
No,
um,
it's fine.
I um, I have a background in theater. I've written and had several shows produced, and the shows that I've worked on, that I've created or been a part of a team to create, all have some sort of social relevance to them. And I feel like the arts, media, television, movies all have a power to be transformative and to get dialogues started on important issues. And America Jonze, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, fits with my basic philosophy of the importance of the arts, why they're important, and the fact that they are jumping off points to have discussions about important issues that we face today. Um, I'll turn it over to Carl. Carl, if you want to introduce yourself and talk about your own background.
Briefly, if I can, my name is Carl Sheffelman. I'm a writer-director based in New York, formerly a professional storyboard artist as a day job. I have not only made films, but worked with some of the great directors of our time, Coppola, Scorsese, Ridley Scott, Ron Howard. Learned a lot, probably more from them than from film school. I've made several short films and written most of them, but I'm a director first, writer second. I also made a feature film called Looking for the Jackalope. If you want to check that out, it's online on Amazon, etc. But I've been looking for other people's scripts to direct, and so I was at a film festival screening my own short film, which was actually called Man on the Tower and dealt with a similar subject, the first real mass shooting at a school campus in 1966. And at the festival, I met ZAREH, who had a pilot TV script called America Jonze, was in competition there. It's also been a second rounder at the Austin Film Festival, and I'm originally from Austin. And we hit it off. He pitched the idea to me about our U.S. problem of guns and mass shootings, and it struck my passion. I was like, I wanna read this. So to make a long story short, I read it and I said, I wanna help you. I want to get on board as a director. And then we talked about making a sizzle reel, which is what is playing in the festival. It's a 2.5 minute sizzle reel, sort of a teaser for the project, and we're on our way, I hope.
Okay. Um, I like this question, and I'm holding up the poster for America Jonze. People can't see it, but there's a person in a wheelchair in the hall there, like that. By the way, it kind of reminds me of the reverse, that picture. You know, the things that when you see something, it kind of reminds me the little kid in The Shining riding his little bike down the hallway. So here's the person in the wheelchair in that almost similar type hallway. That's what hit me, you
Yeah.
know.
I'm a huge Kubrick fan, by the way. And
Oh,
it's also in the script that we're traveling down the hallway. Anytime you get in a hallway like that, you're going to be reminded of The Shining.
yes, and that's
Yeah.
what I was reminded of as
Yeah.
I'm holding this up to show you. I'm saying it's could be The Shining kind of thing, you know. Maybe it is. How would you describe the project of America Jonze?
Go ahead, sir.
Well, yep. America Jonze, it's a uh, proposed limited streaming series. We have an entire season worked out. It is the pilot script is obviously written, and we have an outline for the remaining episodes in the first season. I know we were talking a lot about movies, and the fact of the matter is, not to get too off topic, but streaming limited series that are have been developed in recent years are very cinematic. And I'm sure Carl could talk more about the cinematic elements. But I think with these newer streaming services and the higher production quality, television isn't what it used to be. When we talk about these limited series, they really do have these cinematic elements. So America Jonze would be a political thriller. I like to describe it as House of Cards meets Dexter. It tells the story of a young girl who is a school shooting survivor who grows up to become the first disabled member of Gen Z elected to Congress. And because of the traumatic experience she had as a school shooting survivor, she is committed to preventing further acts of senseless violence. She wants to do something about this very important issue that we're all facing of gun control. And what happens is when she gets to Congress, she realizes that her ideals kind of go out the window, and it is not as easy to even implement quote unquote common sense gun control measures as she had hoped it would be. She finds that the biggest obstacles she has are her fellow politicians. So the series really poses this question of how far are you willing to go to do what you think is right and what is better in your opinion for everyone. Do the ends justify the means? What is she willing to do to enact or to have her way to pass what she thinks is really needed to protect other people? So it's not a black and white issue. One thing I think that we are striving to do and have already started with the pilot is not to present this as a simple black and white issue, not to present it as
Not preachy.
liberal versus conservative. We really want to look at the shades of gray, the nuances of the ethics behind making these decisions. And that's in addition to, the political wrangling that goes on, the behind the scenes deals that get made. the things we don't really hear about on the news. So there are scenes that show that. But I think the more human element and the bigger questions have to do with that sense of ethics and that sense of what is a person willing to do to enact what they think is really right. So I don't know, Carl, if you want to add more to what you think the show's about.
Yeah, to second that, one of the things that I really respect and like about Zare's script is, I mean, yeah, this is a hot issue, and there may be a lot of people afraid of this, making something with this issue, but I feel like it's very balanced. That the both the antagonists and protagonists have their flaws, they have their reasons for either being for gun control or against gun control. It's not preachy. And and the main character has her flaws and her, she sees a psychiatrist, she's got post-traumatic stress syndrome. And so, what we really try to do in the teaser is, as people will see, is present the cinematic possibilities of it, where we have an intriguing incident that happens in a government, in a representative's, older statesman's office that our main character comes creeping out of. We don't know what happened. And we had that superimposed over that, her passionate speech to Congress, speaking for her generation, which is Gen Z, uh, and about how we're sick of it. It's time for change. So we decided to do this sizzler to sort of excite people visually and emotionally about this whole story. We had very little money. We did a 1-day shoot. I think what we accomplished is a lot. We basically had a location that we got for a very low budget, that we turned into a government office building, like a Congress people's offices. And we actually have our lead actress, who was played very well by a young actress named Annie Hartkemeyer. We placed her in Congress giving a speech using green screen. So I think people will be impressed with what we did for nothing and what we can do in the future. And that was the primary reason for making this sizzler.
Okay. I want to make an editorial comment because a few days ago I read the teaser you wrote, and you wrote me. We'd love to discuss this important and timely project on your podcast, which we're doing now. And then I got and I saw what I can see, from America Jonze, and then it hit me. We are entering a whole new world, that's and I think this is important. And all of a sudden, the light bulb goes off in my head about America Jonze and what you can be bringing. Uh, uh, I was particularly horrified at that shooting of the United Healthcare. I think it's United Healthcare executive
Mm-hmm.
who was gunned down because somebody had to express himself about the spiraling cost of all the healthcare, but the rejection and all that. And so, in my mind, when all this was going down, I see we're entering a new stage of things that are beyond our imagination and understanding as they unfold. So, looking at America Jonze, I'm saying to myself, what a perfect time for this project to show itself and to be there, because we're entering this whole new period with gun violence and proactivity and stuff. So anyway, that I'm supporting and fully comprehending, what you're trying to accomplish, because it's really important that this is brought to light, because it's a whole new world. Anyway, that's my editorial comment. So, what was the inspiration ultimately to create America Jonze?
Right. I was a teacher. I was a high school teacher for a while. And then more recently, in the 2000s, I was actually a college professor. And one of the things that we had to undergo was active shooter training on campus. And, you know, this is something I think for about the past 20 years now, schools have implemented. And every time I would enter a new classroom at the beginning of the semester, one of the first things I would do is look around the room, see how I would have to, let's say, barricade the room if there was an active shooter outside, or look for maybe a secondary exit to escape. And it was very much on my mind. You know, here I am, a teacher, a professor, and my goal is to educate the students in my classroom. But before I could even do that, I have to think about their safety. And I felt like this is a new danger and an added level of anxiety for everyone, students and teachers alike, that we never had in the past. And this is this new world that we live in. I have children myself, and I know that they also had to undergo active shooter drills. As a matter of fact, once they're actually, one of my kids was in lockdown for real because they thought there was a shooter on campus. It turned out he had a prop gun. It wasn't a real gun, but it was terrifying to, you know, to not just do a drill, but to actually be in lockdown. And this is a reality for too many people today. So I do think that we need to have a discussion. Something does need to be done about this. Um, it is a difficult subject, and I do understand both sides of the argument, but I don't think just, I think understanding something is just the beginning. And we need to make some sort of progress on this issue because things can't continue the way they are. You know, we have the cycle of an event happens, people say it's too soon to talk about it or do anything about it, and then we forget about it, and then it happens again. And I would like to urge the people who we elect, you know, to make laws, to really do a deeper study and figure out something that can be done, because there are options. There are definitely options, just like it's not black or white. There are options that are not just take away everybody's guns, and there are safety measures that can be put in place that aren't in place. And I would like to have this discussion. I would like to raise more awareness of the issue and make it fresher on people's minds, in the hope that something can change and you know, things can get better. So, Carl, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, you struck on something there. I mean, I think like anything you're trying to do, it behooves you to sort of try to focus it a little bit. And I think what we're focusing on is one aspect of the gun problem, and that is the school mass shootings. Because yes, there are other horrible events in this country, like you said, the healthcare shooting, and you know, there's certainly assassinations, et cetera, et cetera. There are, you know, all sorts of, you know, gang shootings and everything, but there is this phenomenon in America, the, you know, all those shootings included, that's you don't find anywhere else. Random mass shootings with a weapon of mass destruction. It doesn't get any clearer than that. I mean, you can kill a lot of people in a very small amount of time. So that focuses on maybe there's at least one thing we can do. You know, what type of weapons are available? You can't have a tank, you can't have a bazooka, you can't have a grenade. So anyway, without sounding preachy, there are conversations that I think need to be happening. So that's my input on that subject.
Um,
Do you want to talk, Carl, about your own background on what inspired you to be interested in this subject?
Well, yeah, without, or actually, I, I am going to date myself, is that I was a young child when the first the first mass shooting on a school campus happened. That was Charles Whitman's sniper incident at the University of Texas in Austin, and I was a young child coming home from doing the laundry with my mom, and a neighbor ran over and said, "There's a man shooting people from the tower." And we went on our back porch and we could see the tower. It was within a half mile, and we could see the puffs of smoke. And the first thought and horrible realization is that Dad's up there teaching class. Where is he? And sure enough, he was up there teaching class with the windows pointing right at the tower. They cleared out the classroom and he ran around and watched the thing from behind cover, saw somebody shot in front of him. Don't remember his demeanor when he came home because he was very stoic and I was very young. We listened to the whole thing on the radio with the sirens and the famous Neil Spells news report. And many years later, it's always been on my mind. I actually made a short film based on that memory called Man on the Tower. It's on my YouTube channel. So that's accessible to anybody who wants to watch it. But yeah, it's on my mind. I also remember hunkering down in the hall for the nuclear strikes too, when I was a very young child. And so, it's something that I'm passionately always thinking about. And so when Zari, like I said, when he approached me, I knew I wanted to get on board this.
I remember I was a sophomore in college when the Charles Whitman thing went down. I never forgot that. And I can actually remember what he looked like, kind of a big guy, short, blonde, crew cut hair. I mean, that was so indelible in me because that was the first example of that took place in Texas. And uh, I was a big fan of Texas because they had a great football. They had a great coach, Darrell Royal, who was,
Yeah.
it was
I mean, it was shocking in Austin because at that time Austin was a little hippie town. This and liberal, quite liberal.
yeah,
And some of the biggest Vietnam protests in the country happened right on the UT campus. I can remember those as a kid too. So that was unheard of. I mean, and my black and white child's memory, I was also in Dallas when Kennedy was assassinated. I was at my grandmother's house and we watched it on TV. So these are embedded,
embedded.
as a child, embedded.
Yeah, embedded. When I went down to Texas, I told you before we went on air to visit my cousin. I wanted to do research on my first novel. So I just drove around Texas and eventually worked my way to Austin and Sixth Street. All that music
Oh
stuff.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll stay away from there.
yeah.
Worse than Bourbon Street. Yeah.
Yep. And I had a great time, exploring Texas, and of
Yeah.
course, I also came out of Vietnam.
Mhm.
I didn't go to Vietnam, but I came out of that era because that was my whole life. And I don't mind plugging myself. There's a couple chapters in my second novel dealing with this character's journey through the Vietnam War, being part of all that
Yeah.
going on. So powerful stuff. Just to go off topic, I take a breather a little bit, quote unquote, take a breather. I like these questions. I borrowed them from one of my favorite journalists. You don't have to answer, but they're cute. First question. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend the day with.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it is.
John Lennon.
Sure.
Hmm.
I mean, this is like Actor's Studio when he
Oh,
would ask the questions. Yeah, that is the first thing that came in my head.
okay.
Lately, Bob Dylan, because but
Yeah.
he's not dead. So,
Living or dead, that's
Living
oh,
or
you
fine.
dead.
said living or
Yep,
dead.
living
Okay.
or dead, that's
Mhm.
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I'll take a cue from the musicians, and Al go with Billy Joel. And because I feel like, especially when I was younger, I felt like a lot of his lyrics really spoke to me. Um, so I think he would probably be somebody that, and I'm sure probably, millions of his fans felt the same way. And that this is one of the phenomenon with being a singer, right? Is that you appeal to so many people that you have this sense that they're speaking directly to you. But I think Billy Joel would be somebody I'd want to talk to. You know who's another one? Actually, here's another one that is on my mind a lot, and it's a little darker. Spalding Gray.
Oh yeah.
Now, because
Storyteller.
Yeah.
the storyteller, and he was a storyteller, an actor. He had a traumatic past. His mother committed suicide, and then he committed suicide. I actually, back in, when was this? A few years before he committed suicide, I was on a train, an Amtrak train from Boston to New York, and he was sitting just a couple of seats in front of me.
Wow.
And I had always been a fan. And then, literally a couple of years after that, he committed suicide. And I know this is fantastical. I know this is not based on reality, but there's this part of me that is like, he was within feet of me. Was there something I could have done to be like,
love your work,
don't do it. I mean, I just, and that's haunted me. That's really haunted me. Now, I know in reality, there's no way I could have saved his life. I know that, but to come that close to somebody you admire, who is obviously dealing with really dark issues, it just, for me, it creates this impulse that I wish I could have done something.
Yeah.
So yeah, Spalding Gray would probably be the number one person on that list. And even if it was, it would be to talk about life and what's on his mind, and that would be my answer, I think.
Just as a spin-off, because I know we're talking about if you could have spent time with him. I have been lucky, to get back to my filmmaking self, to have spent time with some of my mentors, working as a storyboard artist as my day job. But I think the pinnacle of that was working for a summer with Francis Ford Coppola on his first go-round in 2001 of Megalopolis, the movie that just came out. It's a script he, even at the time, had for 17 years.
Wow.
And he was putting together what I call a little think tank of artists and some students and cameramen and model makers, rented a little dumpy warehouse office in Brooklyn near the Gowanus Canal. And I was invited to come out and do conceptual renderings for Francis. He was also having script readings with some of the greatest actors in the world that would just walk into this little office, including Paul Newman and Heather Graham and James Gandolfini. And he was putting together a promo to try to raise money to make this film because he doesn't do well with in the studio system. But my biggest memory was when I first walked in to start work and sat down at this massive lunch spread, and he came and sat down next to me and said, "Oh, I hear you're the storyboard artist." And I literally left my body. I left my body because this man was so just, you know, surreal to be with him. And Apocalypse Now is one of my favorite movies, a journey film. And just hoping my body would function and speak back to him when he asked me questions. It was amazing. And then years later, just 3 years ago, I was called again to work on the latest, which then ended up being released, to do a little more work for him. But that is, and sitting with Ridley Scott, sitting with Ron Howard, Scorsese, these are my mentors, and those are fortunately some real moments that happened that I was wishing for. I'm just a little homeboy from Austin, Texas, and
Yeah.
it was great. Anyway,
Well, no,
um,
that what I love
wanted to say that the other challenge we have besides the political issue and how people are going to how receptive they're going to be, we're trying to get this project made. We made a sizzler. Zari wrote a script. Zari wrote, outlined the series, but we want to turn this, we want to make this happen, and that is especially hard now. Not just because of the issue, but because it's very hard to get through the gatekeepers and get a project like this off the ground. So, we made this sizzler. We're working on our pitch deck. We're doing all that. We are meeting actually with a young producer next weekend during the film festival. But we're very serious about not sitting with a script in our lap and having this happen. And I think one of our main tasks that we have to do is find a producer, uh, maybe more than one producer, but certainly one being someone that might have access to a streamer like like Netflix, like Hulu, that would take this seriously. And because we can't do it alone as non-celebrity writers, directors. So we're also looking at trying to get the script to some talent, some A-list talent. I mean, this has got several great roles for both lead actor and supporting actor. The lead actor is wheelchair bound. So that's going to be a challenge. I think in an ideal world, we would actually have someone that was wheelchair bound. Not necessarily an A-lister, but we're going to need some connections here to get this thing made. As any independent filmmaker knows, it is especially hard now to get something like this off the ground. So that's our main goal right now. I'll just lay that out there.
No, I'm glad
Yeah.
I feel such a kinship with you guys as I'm listening to you. The kinship is I'm an indie author. I'm an
Yeah.
indie author who wrote a
I want to
novel.
read your stuff, by the way.
Excuse me.
I want to read your books, by the way.
I think you'll love it.
Okay.
It's by the way, there's about between 50 and 100 references to movies in here, movies that have impacted my life. So I transfer it to that. But and I'm working with she's a best-selling author. She's got a little author group, and we're all indies, and we're all taking that journey.
Mhm.
You're indies, and
Yeah.
and
Everybody's making a movie. Everybody's got their films on streamers.
yeah,
You need a marketing team.
sure,
It's especially hard now.
it's really hard, and I know deep in my soul, I know that it just takes one
Interested
connection out
party.
there.
Yes.
It
Yep.
takes one connection. I remember some months ago, Jimmy Fallon
Hmm.
had reinstituted his book club.
Mhm.
He held up a book and he said, "We put this book into our book club." 2 weeks ago, before we announced it, it was ranked, I think, 45th thousandth on Amazon. So there were 44,999 books better selling than that. So it
Hmm.
was ranked 45th thousand. And he said we put it into our book club, and yesterday it was ranked 35th.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's a wow.
Yep.
And as an indie author, I see and I hear that. Oh my goodness! And hey, listen, I got the Kirkus Star. That's one of the highest honors you can get, and I've been compared to some amazing writers. I don't see myself like that, but nevertheless, but I know, just like you guys know, it's
Yeah.
just one little boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel everything you're saying.
I mean, I feel personally as a filmmaker, I've done my time working for the greats. It's my turn. I've made some good short films. I made a good feature film. You can look me up on YouTube. I assume you're going to put some of our our contacts
whatever you
somewhere.
sent me.
I'm
No,
on
it's all
IMDb, et cetera, et cetera.
whatever you sent me. Yep. Your Facebook page, the YouTube page with teaser, email, your email, whatever you sent me
Okay.
goes in. And I just, I just keep promoting, and somewhere along the line, I just hope somebody, hey, for you guys, because you know what, I'm not just saying it because you're here. I'm saying it because I believe it, because everything I'm learning and listening, how important this really is, because we're entering a new age.
Yeah, this needs to happen. This is a
It
very important
it
project.
really
It's
is.
it's very, you talk about edgy. I mean, this is about as edgy as you get. I hate that word, but um it's something that, again, you know, we're not preaching. We're dramatizing a big question, a big conversation about this social problem that we have in our country from both sides,
Correct.
from both sides.
Correct. Um, and that's why people should care about
Yeah,
this project, because it's so relevant, and because the world
Mhm.
is changing.
yeah.
Yep.
And listen, I subscribe to that, and because I believe it, with that shooting, and um so you have there's been some degrees of success with this now, and you've gotten some feedback.
Yeah. The script has placed in many over half a dozen contests at this point. It's come in as a second rounder. It was a finalist
Oh,
in another contest recently.
the
I
Palm
should have the
Springs
list. The Palm Springs. Thank you. I was trying to remember the
Palm
name.
Springs screenplay and teaser pitch deck competition. We
Oh,
were
you
a
got the.
finalist.
Yep. But so that was the most recent one and probably the highest honor we've gotten so far. But it is done really well in
Well, the
a,
Austin
like I
Film
said,
Festival's second round
right.
twice is a
Wow.
good
Yep.
thing.
So
That's a big one.
I submitted um the an earlier draft a couple of years ago, and then a more current draft, and both of them placed as second rounders in Austin. The Big Apple Film Festival placed in that. Um, it was a semifinalist for Cinestory, so
Blue
it's
Cat.
doing, and Blue Cat that as well. So it's and the review. I have two reviews. You can see them on the website from the Blacklist, and I think it was from Blue Cat. Um, that are really praising the script. So it's doing really well in the contests. And as Carl was describing, we really need to take it to that next level and get producers' eyes on it. Get that person who really believes in this project to move it forward. Beyond just doing well in contests. So yeah, Carl, I don't know if you wanted to add
No,
as
that's
well.
that's what I was saying pretty much. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and the last thought, and you kind of alluded to this, you just said it, but maybe just kind of tie it up. So for me, what are the next steps to get this project actually made? And of course, you're doing that. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of kind of my job because I'm in the industry. I do have connections. I do know producers. I do know, I'm not an A-lister myself. So it's not easy. I just sent a query out for a major actress, talent, to her manager. I won't name her name, but I'm going to continue doing that, because there are a lot of actors that are very passionate about this issue. I've gotten emails from actors that are, supporting the Everytown, um, whatever that foundation is for, school shootings. There's the young Gen Z politicians. The one guy, what's his name? ZAREH,
David Hogg.
David Hogg, who's got, he's full 100% behind that for obvious reasons. Can we get people like that interested? Can we get some of these foundations interested? Not that they would have money, but the more we can get interest and then segue over to, talent that are passionate about this, the better. That's really what, and we're constantly refining our pitch deck. So we're just going to keep going, and we can send this teaser out for a little visual excitement, and just keep at what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Hey, I hope I can. Yeah, I just keep throwing. That's what I do. On my end, uh, meeting guys like you, with so accomplished and so purposeful and so dedicated, to your craft, to your work, and to the story. We're all, I'm just trying to find my way to get this podcast seen by more people. It should be seen.
Please.
It really should be seen. Hey, listen, I interviewed the #2 man at NASA. One call away from the president. I mean that's extraordinary. But it just gets buried and frustrated. My last question, semi off topic. Um, uh, so I watched Academy Awards a couple of weeks ago, and remembering my fate in life, I'm an indie author, and then I see, and I started watching it last night. As a matter of fact, I was fumbling around Disney, and there it was. I'm talking about Honora. So Honora is, quote, an indie film. I guess you got to stretch it a little bit, but it's an indie film, $6 million budget, a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, not necessarily.
$18 million marketing to Oscars budget. Yeah.
I know. So
But
that's why
I haven't seen the film, so I can't,
well, I started watching it last night. Then I knew I had to get up early with you guys, so
yeah.
I'm not laying any guilt on you, but I had to stop
Yeah.
watching it.
Yeah.
See, it was 1 and 2 in the morning. I
Yeah.
found it.
Yeah. No, it was encouraging. See indie films.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So no matter how you slice it, you got an unknown actress, truly.
Yeah.
You got best picture, best director.
Yep.
He's been around a long time.
Yep. Tangerine was his first, I think.
Yep, he's been around a long time, and you got to tip your hat. He's a Jersey boy, by the way, which I like.
Yeah. And really, The Brutalist was not a big budget.
Right.
And I was pulling big time for Adrian Brody, and I was very happy that he won
Yeah.
Best Actor. Even though he's well known, I really admire him.
Yeah.
I mean, he put his blood, sweat, and tears into that role for 3.5 hours. It is a tough movie to watch. I don't know, some people may not have liked it, but it was not a big budget. I think it was about 8 million. I'm not. They shot it in an amazingly short amount of time.
No.
So the big ones, Dune and all that, they didn't fare as well as some of these, smaller quote indie films. I mean, obviously, if you have an A-list actor like Adrian Brody, it can still be indie, but it's sort of what it takes to get a project, going. That wasn't true of Honora, really. I don't think anybody was an A-lister there. But the director is pretty much an A-lister.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
He was a former projectionist. That's how far back it goes. It's a small theater in North Jersey,
and he put his blood, sweat, and tears in everything he's done. So
yeah. So I mean, it's hey, the whole creative journey is a hard journey, and again, I sit in my little world, and I fully comprehend.
I mean, I say to I've been interviewed a couple of times and asked what would I tell other indie filmmakers. And I'm like, one, you got to have tenacity. Two, you do need to have some way of gauging if if you what you're doing is any good. I mean, you don't want to be Ed Wood as a filmmaker, if anybody knows who Ed Wood was.
Oh yeah.
Delusional in your grandeur. But so you do need that, and you just can't stop. You're going to get knocked down a million times. I don't have anything else I want to do. I really don't. There's nothing else I can do that I wouldn't have to spend years of training for. And so this is it. For me, I'm not necessarily going to make a living, but this is what I want to do. And you just have to want it really bad, really, really bad.
Same here.
Mhm.
Same. I understand everything you're saying, and I'm certainly at the tail end of my career. And I'm becoming an octogenarian in a few.
Listen, my mom, I'm going to tout my mom. Hi, mom. She's turning, well, she's turning 95.
Wow,
She writes children's books.
wow,
She just got signed with a new publisher for her latest book.
Wow.
Not a major one, but it's a good
wow,
publisher, international publisher. She works out 4 days a week in the gym,
wow.
been through a knee replacement, everything else.
Wow.
But she's still at it now. Some of it's luck of the draw genetically or whatever.
Yeah,
But
sure, sure.
she's certainly a role model for myself. I don't like the fact that it's late in life. I'm a late bloomer, but you got to start somewhere at some point.
Hey, my
What are you
second
gonna do?
novel,
What are you gonna do?
I'm a
Yeah. As
septuagenarian.
David Bowie says,
Yeah,
time can change me, but I can't change time. So,
nice. And
yeah.
that's a nice way to kind of wrap.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a perfect.
That's another guy I would have liked to spend time with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've got a
Yeah.
whole list of those.
Yeah.
I've got a whole list of
Hmm.
those, and a lot of my, are people involved in your world. The film world.
Mhm.
Marty Scorsese. I marvel
Mhm.
at him, and I watch him. It's funny.
I
I
have some
watch.
funny stories about him. Anyway.
Oh, he's just.
Yeah.
But I watch so many different interviews he's interviewed, and he's just one of the guys.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
about as laid back and
Yeah.
one of the guys as you can ever find. There's no eccentricity about him. He's just a regular guy, but a
Hmm.
genius.
I mean, Coppola was as generous as you can, more generous than you can imagine, with encouraging us as a team of younger people helping, create things. I mean, he certainly can have a temper or get pissed off about things, but he was just really respectful, I felt, to everybody that was working with him. So,
Hey, he's such a hero of mine. He
yeah,
made one of the great films,
The
maybe the
Godfather.
greatest. Yeah, The Godfather, maybe the
Yeah,
greatest. I think it is the greatest. People throw Citizen Kane there, which I watched last week. A great film, but
right.
I don't think anything.
Hard
And
to beat. Hard to
yeah,
beat.
it's
Yeah.
really, yeah. And I've watched, Casablanca literally 200 times. I flew to Italy a couple of years ago, and I have a bad knee, so I sat in first class to stretch out, and they had a special movie thing, and flying to Italy, there was Casablanca. I said, oh wow.
Yeah.
So I put it on, and it's a long flight, and I finished watching it, and I put it on again. So I watched it twice on my way to Rome. And coming home, same plane, same thing. I watched it two more times. So four times. But
Yeah.
each time, I swear, like each time I'll follow Michael Curtiz as a director, and I'll look at his use of shadows on the
Yeah.
faces of Ingrid, and
Hmm.
and I'll marvel at that.
Yeah. I actually did the Robert McKee screenwriting seminar, 3 day seminar. And the main thing that we did was study Casablanca for like 2 days.
Wow,
Everything from the writing to the lighting,
wow,
everything.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it was fascinating.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Those brothers wrote that in a matter of days.
Yeah.
The Epstein brothers.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think they were writing it as they were going along.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
Yeah, just just mind-boggling, and of course, it changed my life, that movie.
Yeah.
So there's something there. Um,
I hope we have renewed interest in that kind of filmmaking. I know it's, people's attention spans are shorter and, everybody's watching TikTok and all that, but I'm 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 still an old fashioned, cinema.
yeah,
That's what I like.
and I think
Um,
we're coming back.
I hope so.
I think we're coming back. No, I really do.
Yeah,
I think
I
podcasts
do.
are coming back, and I
Yeah.
think this is coming back, and I'm really hopeful, and I want to follow you guys.
Thanks.
So I'm going to
Thank you.
stop recording.
Okay.
I'm actually welcoming you to come back any shape, way, form. I'm always here. I sit in this chair 12 hours a day. So please come back, and I only wish you good things. We'll stay in touch. Don't leave. I'm going to stop recording, and we'll do
Okay.
a little wrap.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure too. Thank you.